And we hope that it's been valuable, for our listeners. And
it's been valuable for me.
Right.
And that's kind of the big surprise. It's like the real raw stories that people will open up. And probably my favorites is when people get choked up, because like it is something that you have struck a chord that maybe they've not been able to discuss with someone else, but they'll feel comfortable doing it here. And I think we want to build and grow upon that. So thanks for allowing us to be able to do that and do more of that.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan DeLeon, and I'm here with our founder and CEO of Small Nation, Jason Duff. Today we are excited to be recording the final episode of Season 1. We want to welcome you to the Small Nation podcast, where we share some of the valuable lessons with what we have learned about entrepreneurship, real estate, economic development, and more. The point of this podcast is to create value for you, the listener, and to create a space to learn, talk about what's trending, and inspire others.
Ethan, congratulations.
Congratulations to you.
We made it.
50 episodes.
It's wild. I was coming into the studio this morning, like thinking I would have never imagined that over the year we have had a chance to interview 50 different guests and a very diverse group of guests.
Yeah.
Different backgrounds, different communities from all around the state, even some folks from around the country. And I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful for you. I'm thankful for our listeners. I'm thankful for our guests. And I'm very energized to take what we've learned and take it to a new level.
Right. But we're not done yet, right?
It's only going to get better from here.
Yes. So for our listeners, just so we can explain a little bit, hitting 50 episodes is a big milestone for us. Getting the podcast started was a big win. And as Jason said, we've had so many different guests. So if you haven't gone back and listened through all of them, we would highly encourage you to. We're going to be highlighting a few of our favorites here in a bit. It's hard to choose a favorite, so maybe just some good ones. But just so you know what to expect, we are going to be coming back. We found that this is valuable for us and for listeners, and just for just people in the community. So I don't know, you have a couple stories, I think, of people coming up to you and just saying how much a podcast has meant to them. So would you mind sharing some of those?
Yeah, well, I recently was down at the Rural Economic Development Forum in Ohio University, and this is a forum that annually people get together to discuss what's happening around the state. And a lot of mayors, a lot of folks that work in economic development, chambers of commerce. I mean, many of our listeners. And I just got registered, was heading up the escalator, and I heard someone screaming my name, Jason, like to get my attention. And I didn't know her, but she knew me, and she said, I am a regular listener of the Small Nation podcast, and thank you for what you do. And we then had a more meaningful conversation to learn about her community and her work, but she shared that some of those early episodes really were something that she was able to drop links to other folks that had similar challenges. And she said, listen to this episode because here's what you're going to learn, and you're not alone in that situation. And then just this last week, Nick Davis on our consulting team and I were down. We are doing work in Germantown, Ohio, which is this beautiful small town that is kind of in the Cincinnati area between Cincinnati and Dayton. And we, a number of folks that are in that room shared that they are regular listeners. And it was more than one people. And we didn't solicit, to say, are you listening to the Small Nation podcast? It was pretty much forthcoming to say, we're trying to work on our signage code, and we really found the episode, as you were talking about marketing and the early days of public-private partnerships, the interview with Mayor Stoller, hearing that sometimes you had to break some rules or do some experiments before that could actually become a change in law for the city itself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, again, just a few examples. Another one, our leasing and property manager, Kane Strickland, spoke to the Rotary Club 2 weeks ago. And he actually asked the Rotarians, how many of you are familiar or have listened to an episode of the Small Nation podcast? And more than half of the room raised their hand. And I think that's the power and the reminder of why we as a company are taking time to invest in not only the equipment, the studio, I mean, your time, my time, it is continually surprised us how many listeners and how much feedback and how much this is really helping others.
Yeah. And one of the things that comes to mind as you're explaining all that is I've had similar experiences of people coming up to me and just, thanking me for, work with the podcast. And it's been fun for me, obviously, but, some of those were local to Bellefontaine as well. So we always use Bellefontaine as a case study of how we can help other communities. But business owners still trying to figure out where to get involved, and some creative ways to come over challenges that, guess what? They're not the only one to go through those challenges. So to hear other entrepreneurs that they know on the show and how they overcame some of those challenges in the early days has been cool for me to see as well.
I've also heard from our guests that we've had on that it's been very helpful for them and their businesses too. I really enjoyed interviewing Callie Lange from the Revival Design Studio. Callie is an architect. She's a building owner. She's a small town champion herself. But she explained in her segment what she does and how she helps developers and clients look at buildings to understand what is needed to renovate them, what code issues or challenges they may have, putting together design ideas and budgets for what it takes to renovate a project. She basically takes that episode that she recorded here on the Small Nation podcast and drops it in an email link to her clients to help them better understand ways that she and her team can help. And I guess that's exciting too, because our guests do take a lot of energy and time to think about some of the questions that we sent over. It's always exciting to see people in the studio, but that's another way that a podcast can be used to grow your business and helping others as well. I mean, providing quality content.
Right. And, that trickles down into social media as well. So we hope that, the listeners have been enjoying some of the social media content. If you're not following us at this point, I mean, I say it at the end of every episode. I don't know how else to say it. Follow our social media channels. But Callie's a great example. I know we've had, Chad Hoffman, on as well from Richwood, and just the opportunity to highlight some of these people who are already doing great things and making what we do here at Small Nation possible has truly been, one of the greatest privileges of doing this podcast. So that's been great.
The other thing I'll just mention is I also, by having a podcast, have been invited to participate on other people's podcasts.
Yep.
And I think that's another strategy and way to not only get mentions from a whole different audience, but also it's opened me up to learn and study other hosts and other interview styles in terms of ways questions are asked or content's presented. So that's been another big surprise and a good thing for our brand and for me in my business.
Absolutely. And it's cool to see. We've seen some other podcasts start around the same time as ours and in smaller towns too, smaller communities. It's a great way to extend your reach and just engage more people in the conversation. So to our listeners, thank you for sticking with us. All of this would not be possible or worth it without you. So that's been awesome. We want to kind of maybe go back through a few of our favorite episodes. I keep saying favorite. I shouldn't say favorite.
There are so many. I think it was hard. Like you and I were just going through some of the highlights. I think is probably the best way to say it, of people that really pull together the entire season. And there's certain themes that came up. Many of these themes, as you would ask about the golden nugget or their favorite books or resources, we started noticing there were a few patterns.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I know a few of my, for me coming in and being a part of this team, it was really cool to hear, from the beginning, Brittany Saxton, Adam Rammel talking about 600 downtown pizzeria, which, I mean, if you've ever been to Bellefontaine, I'm sure you've tried out the pizzeria or, Brew Fountain and then the Syndicate after, and how that evolved and how that kind of drove a lot of the, the work that's happening here with Small Nation.
Well, we talk about, the base of the pyramid to get people coming back to town is you had to buy and invest in historic real estate. And the state of Bellefontaine, when we first started, 80% of the storefronts were vacant and empty. And it was finding people that believed in a greater vision. And I think a lot of our guests highlight that no matter where you go, you have to sell yourself and you have to sell your vision. And I think that was a reoccurring theme. But when you hear Brittany and her origin story of her passion with pizza, or Adam, using his marketing skills and prowess, but also his love of meeting and finding business partners that resonated around craft beer. And then, people, you kind of see it started to spider out in a good way from people like them, but hearing their original stories, it wasn't easy.
Right.
It wasn't handed to them, and they really didn't have all the answers on day one.
Yeah, for sure. It was just cool. I mean, that was the obvious starting point to tell that story of Small Nation and our partners who have now gone on to do great things. But then, like you said, kind of spider out, and we were hitting real estate professionals too. Jesse Lear, for me as a young professional who eventually wants to get into the real estate game, it's just cool to hear some of the different strategies that are out there, and with Epicurean Properties, that was a really good one. Or engaging with our public partners, both Ben's here and Mayor.
There's no
and
question the Chamber of
Commerce,
tourism, Main Street, and just hearing from their perspective, I'm so thankful for Ben and people like Eric Phillips, who's the Union County Chamber. I mean, I think the thing about having a privatized partner, their side, I love what Ben Volras said. He said, like, when people call me and ask, like, is this Small Nation thing real? Not only is it real, but it's like having two chambers of commerce that can get double the work done. That I'm just thankful to have a partner like that. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then just covering other like relevant topics, with the employee shortage, throughout the country, we were able to talk to Mindy Wells about, alternative sources of talent and how to find them, and, contractors versus employees and things like that. I just think that was helpful information that we're able to syndicate better. Or Jacob Strader with, talking about everything finance.
Having advisors that are accountants, attorneys, and I know, not only did Mindy Wells cover HR law, and Jacob highlighted the importance of taxes and understanding your accounting system, but I remember we had Connor Kenzie on and discussing all the various ways that an attorney can help you set up your business, from entity formation to writing your first contract to being prepared if you're faced in a situation with a dispute. Like, I think that would be, those were all really helpful guests for listeners.
100%. And, we tend to resonate with, people who are doing development across the board. So real estate, some kind of business venture in addition to real estate, and they're engaging with those public partners as well. So a few of those that come to mind, we have Luke Henry doing this thing up in Marion, doing a great job. It was
Main Street Reimagined.
Right.
Great stuff.
Great to hear him and how he's taking a lot of the similar strategies, that we're doing and implementing them up there. And then Chad and Brandy Lawson and Piqua, Chesley and Jeremy as they're starting up in the Akron area. And then even here recently, Amy Miller talking about kind of on the backside of that with Bryan, Ohio, some of the work that, we're able to do there. And some of those guests were, I think they kind of are in the same journey as we are, just on different points. I feel like we've been able to give some of the information back to what we've been doing. But I know in a recent episode we talked about Small Nation, consulting and small town success and things like that. But would you like to maybe highlight some of the services that Small Nation is doing in communities outside of Bellefontaine?
Well, we've used what we've learned here, and for many years, people would say, "Can you help me duplicate what you've done in Bellefontaine in my town?" And I needed to build a team of people and also establish a leadership trust with advisors and consultants that could, because it's not easy work. And a lot of what we share on the podcast, I love to give as much free away that we possibly can. We've got case studies on our website. We share our weekly small talk email, but there are many cases that people are like, I need help for you to do this work with me. What is the strategies, the ideas, the tools that we can use to get this done and get these projects moving? And so we developed our Small Nation consulting team, and people like Nick Davis and Ann Donnelly and a number of our team members will step up to be coaches and consultants, where we utilize our small town success formula, which is really multi-pronged in terms of buying and investing historic buildings, actively recruiting businesses or tenants to be a part of the project or the movement, getting access to capital. How can we raise money or find investment partners or stakeholders in a project? And really that last piece is the ongoing marketing, coaching, and support. We have to be good storytellers. And I'm really excited because we have had people on the podcast, not only here in Ohio, which you mentioned, Amy Miller and Brian, Ohio, but we've also had folks on from Marshalltown, Iowa. Out of state that has highlighted ways that we are working with them in their town. And so I think the podcast is a great tool to highlight those successful consulting stories of here's ways that we have the problems that we identified in the town, and then the way we work with a local team on site to create success.
Yeah, that's great. And just to share with our listeners of some of the direction that we're heading into, obviously we have the podcasts and the emails that go out to try to provide that value and just give you maybe some of that basic starting information of where to look, and we're learning stuff ourselves here on the podcast as far as some of those resources that are available for small businesses through state programs and otherwise. But obviously we have their consulting for people who are ready. We just need somebody to come in and tell us what to do, give us some creative ideas, and that's something 100% Small Nation has been doing. But we've been noticing there's kind of this gap in between. You're not quite ready for the consulting services yet, but maybe you either yourself or a small group of entrepreneurs who are ready to start making a difference, and whether it be your community, your business. So we wanted to make some resources available to those people. So I know I'm excited about, building out some courses that we can, syndicate out through in addition to the podcast. So I guess what I want to say is if you have been listening to the show and you resonated specifically with some of those episodes like Luke Henry, with Chad and Brandy Lawson, Chesley and Jeremy, Amy Miller, some of those, if that development as a whole, you have a dying, underrated town and you have, mixed use property that you need some creative ideas for, or you're having trouble getting people behind you and supporting you, it is our intention over these next couple of years, as we're building this thing out, to create some, resources for you that you can go specifically in your lane. And we've identified, we have several different areas that need attention. We have municipalities that need to hear how the best ways to collaborate with their private partners, right? We have small businesses who need just the opposite of that.
That's right.
How to engage with their, municipalities and their community leaders. We also have restaurants, how do we collaborate with each other rather than compete with each other, and investors and economic development. So and even here in Bell Fountain, we have a whole nother market, but we've identified these lanes, and I think it's our goal, and I'm going to try to help the best I can, to create those resources in our new studio, which we'll get to here in a second. But to create those resources that will be available to kind of, before you go into a consulting kind of relationship.
Well, I wish when I first started, I did scour the internet for anyone that was developing in small towns, and I was coming up short. And, today, what's been amazing from the reach outs and the people that have contacted us, there's actually a really large market of people that want to take back, restore, and revitalize their small town. And so I'm so excited, and I appreciate, Ethan, the accountability, the coaching, the support that you have provided to say, let's really work on these courses, because I really think that's another way that we can create a lot of value for our listeners. And we recently did a survey, and we got several hundred responses from that survey asking, what are the critical challenges that you're running up against in the town? And many of the things that you mentioned there, Ethan, in terms of topics, were feedback that people were mentioning in the survey, and that we know, and thank you for those that replied, we know that's an area that we need to focus.
Right. And it's not just going to be limited to, a paid course of some kind. We're trying to make this, some of this information accessible on the podcast. Just, one of the main goals of this podcast is to provide value to our listeners, as I say every week on this show. But, we are also going to be taking deeper dives on topics, such as filling empty buildings, how to handle resistance to change.
Big ones. That's a big one.
Right. Balance between local business and larger franchises. Funding opportunities and raising capital, recruiting entrepreneurs, how to get leadership involved, getting business owners involved in the community, mixed use development, advertising, downtown housing strategies. These are all, and this is honestly just a sample of the feedback from that survey and just hearing other things and our consulting and whatever else. We're going to try to do some deeper dives outside of, guests being on the show. We're still going to continue to do that stuff. We may change it up a little bit too, take the show on the road occasionally.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about that.
Yeah, introduce some new show segments potentially. Got a lot of fun ideas as we're going to look at season 2. So definitely stay tuned if some of those things will be beneficial to you. And I just want to encourage you as well, like, we're not going to withhold that information for the courses or anything like that. We're going to try to make that accessible to you as we can. So looking forward to that. But, as we're kind of reflecting on season 1, we had a lot of great entrepreneurs on the show. So
we did.
One of our most listened to episodes was probably Matt Brown. He
did not hold anything back,
No,
which that's, again, the more authentic and real and raw you are, the more that message will really sink in.
Yeah. So we're going to play a few of our, snapshots throughout season 1 of these entrepreneurs and just some of their power statements, if you will. But Matt Brown, if you haven't listened to the episode, is a former employee of Small Nation and is now an entrepreneur doing a lot of crazy things. So here's just a quick highlight from his episode. Advice would you give someone who is going through their darkest time on a team?
I got to ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. If it's about money, you ain't gonna win. Like, you're not.
Matt, really discussed on the episode the highs of entrepreneurship and that rush of creativity when everything is new, establishing new business partnerships, but then also sharing the cost of entrepreneurship. And that's actually the title of that segment. When he spoke, he highlighted that, the cost that it took on him mentally, physically, emotionally, the damage it caused his family, friendships, but also highlighting how he found his why again. And when he did reconstitute his businesses with Iron City Sports Bar and Bobber's Pizzeria at the Lake, and now his newest bar and restaurant, which is Skinny's Tavern in Kenton, you can see how that mind shift changed, and now he's winning, and he's winning big. And I just appreciated those reflections, and probably that's one of the episodes, as I'm out and about in the community, people comment on the most. Yeah,
for sure. It was a good one. And it's just encouraging to hear that other entrepreneurs are going through some of those same mental challenges. One of the biggest takeaways from season 1 is probably that entrepreneurship is not easy and it's lonely at times. And so I feel like we get a little bit of a taste of the reality of that and what that actually looks like in life if you, let it go. So we appreciate him coming on the show and sharing that with us. But another one, as we were talking about redevelopment of downtowns and just another great entrepreneur was Luke Henry. So I'm going to play a quick clip from his episode here.
Lois's famous sayings is that she says, we're just the keepers of the keys of these old buildings, and that they've been here longer than we have, and they'll probably outlast all of us as well. And so, we consider it a privilege to keep the keys for this period of time and to bring these buildings back to what they once were, because
it's a really good perspective.
At one time they were unbelievably ornate and full of life and full of community and all these things that we want to bring back again.
Yeah.
So true and so powerful. I admire that he quoted Lois Fisher in Marion, and I highlighted on this episode that Lois was someone that also inspired me because she was investing and developing loft apartments in Marion before that was really even a thing. She was the pioneer and innovator, and she lived in her properties too, which being a part of the neighborhood as it was transitioning and making it better. And there's no better way to say that we are just a steward of the resources that we're given. And I love the keeper of the keys. And I think that when you think about the things that you've been blessed with or the things that you've been entrusted with, how you can pay that forward to the next generation. Love that.
Yeah, another great episode. And then the last one I kind of want to highlight here is Sarah Kelsey. This is more of a recent one. Great episode. She has a lot of spunk here on the show. So if you want to be entertained, go take a listen to that. But we appreciate her perspective. So here's a little clip from that episode.
I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I can't do that because I'm in a small town or I'm in, shut up. Shut up, because you can.
You can do it. And
yeah,
in fact, I think you have more advantages in a small town and small market.
Yes. So because we're set up in a real life, Hallmark town, we have the 4 Airbnbs. So our clients fly into Columbus International and
that's what I was going to say. That's what makes it the whole weekend experience, because then you get, I'm sure, all kinds of groups who want to spend the weekend.
We do. So we have our pageant girls who want to come in and design, and our brides who want to come in and design with their girlfriends. And then we have just groups of gals who are just looking for a fun girls' weekend.
I love her, and I love that energy. You can hear it in her voice. And I think that's another thing about this podcast is giving people the courage to go out and change the world. And I think she highlights how she uses what some people would think would be a disadvantage to her advantage. And that is the power of small. The power of small is being nimble, is being creative, is being able to pivot, is being able to be responsive. That is why it's the name of our company. That's why it's in the name of this podcast. There is great power in being small.
Yeah, I love that. And I love just some of those power statements. You can't plan that stuff as far as the statements that they say and how it's just so consistent with the brand Small Nation. But it's really exciting to see. And, encouraging that other people are out there doing great things. But yeah, so we just wanted to take, a little bit of time and just kind of reflect on season 1. We are, proud of how it's been going so far, but we're also very excited for the future.
We've been using feedback, and that's the thing. I waited way too long to do a podcast. I had a lot of friends saying, listen, you guys should create a reality television show. It's really because every day is all of these new highs and lows. And when we started kind of breaking things down into nuggets and getting people comfortable of speaking, and us, I think, getting comfortable with speaking,
100%.
It's we need to double down and do this more. And I think that's what I'm excited as we are taking things to a new level, is we want to be better at this.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we are creating, part of that is you have to invest in that, right? In order for that.
This is an investment of time.
Right.
It's an investment of equipment and resources. And I think by listening to our customers, we know right now, our studio looks pretty awesome, I think, on video.
If you go back and watch episode 1 on YouTube, and if you haven't watched the episode, if you've only been listening, we appreciate the listens, but go check out on YouTube and just watch the transformation as it started from, it was a different color wall. I think it was
it was.
Yeah, the same color as this over here. And then I was like, Jason,
we can do better. Well, in all seriousness, we did this with a low budget, being creative with your help. And we shoot right now. This studio is in the basement of the Main Street Marketplace in downtown Bellefontaine. We are set up on a conference room that is booked almost every hour of the day. Yep. So I know I
have to book my setup time and my teardown time just to make sure we have enough time.
And meetings run over. Sometimes
yep.
we're busy talking or busy producing.
Yeah.
And so it isn't always convenient.
Right.
And I think now that we know that this is something we want to do, and not only do we want to do it for ourselves, we've had a lot of people reach out that say, I would love to do a podcast. Can you help me with that? And that gave us kind of the confidence to invest in a more dedicated, beautiful studio.
Yeah, 100%. So what we're talking about is that, we have the Build co-working space here in downtown Bell Fountain is our own private brand of co-working. And that's been full. It's been taking, it's been doing its job quite well.
A big credit to Bo and Jane
Right.
and all of the members over there. I mean, to be honest with you, we did design a podcast studio in Build Bell Fountain, and they were so quick of leasing all of the dedicated office space. The podcast studio got turned into a dedicated office.
Right. Yeah.
So it kind of said we need to create more co-working spaces and offices here in our downtown. We also announced about the same time that we acquired a building in Marysville, Ohio, and we're renovating and developing Build Marysville. But I'm here to say that the Opera Suites by Build actually has moved a lot faster with the construction team, and a big credit to the local building authority and folks just saying we want to see this happen in a historic building. That's probably going to be opening up in the next 30 days, the Opera Suites by Build. And
Crazy.
Build Marysville is still coming. It's just we're working through, welcome to the world of construction and permits and all that jazz too. But we're really excited to bring that online. And tell us a little bit within the Opera Suites by Build, because you've been very instrumental in the development. What are some of the capabilities and features of that space?
Sure. I mean, obviously, with the Build brand comes great Wi-Fi, and co-working abilities. That is ideal for someone like me who's, working remote a lot of the time, whether it's just editing and just need to get out of the house kind of thing. Co-working space is ideal. So to have obviously an extension of that, I think a lot of people are familiar with the co-working model now, but we're building out this studio over on the second floor on Court Street over there. And part of my job here as well has been documenting that process. And so if you have not checked out the documentary series on the Small Nation YouTube channel of the historic opera block here in downtown Bell Fountain, it's been a passion project of mine, and it's a lot. It's overwhelming at times to try to figure out how to tell the story of what's being done here. But it truly is impactful, I think, and it's been a lot of fun to document that. I think we've dropped 4 or 5 episodes at this point, with lots more to come. And then hopefully the idea is to put together a feature-length documentary, submit it to festivals and things like that in the end.
And I'll just make a comment about that. Like, that is another thing that is just, it started here, but is now moved up here. And a lot of the most common question we get is, how do I renovate a building in my town? And walking through show episode by show episode, you hear different perspectives.
Yeah.
And you've posted that on YouTube, but it's also, if you go to operablock.com, you'll see the whole listing of the docuseries there. And I've actually got a lot of people that have said that was really helpful to hear that, because you hear from the building being in condemned status to, the acquisition price was relatively low for literally 2 city blocks of real estate, but the effort that it's taken to replace the roof, to fix windows, to tuck point the masonry, to, get the building safe, like doing away with a boiler that was nearly 100 years old, that was a major safety hazard, because if the boiler blew, like, people would get hurt. Like, and I think just hearing everyone's perspective and then seeing the transformation of the pictures. I mean, you can open up the Instagram page and scroll back to when the first post happened and visually see how it's changed and evolved today. And then just walking on that block in the street, like, we were very lucky to have a great coffee shop like Sweet Aromas anchored on the end, but now it's a home to like at least 6 or 7 new businesses.
Which wasn't there. I mean, like, there was not much. I mean, I remember my parents moved out to this area, a few years ago, and I went in some of those businesses, and I was
rough.
Yeah.
Well, and the sad part is, it really sometimes wasn't the business's fault as much it was the landlord just refused to put any money in the building.
Right.
And when things start to deteriorate to some point, like, you can't operate in a business that doesn't have heat. You can't operate a business that doesn't have working plumbing. And it takes a lot of courage as a developer to, take over an existing building that has all of those problems. But if no one steps up and does it, then you have these disastrous consequences for your community and for your downtown, because they could catch fire. They could, fall apart in a windstorm that goes by. Like I've seen so many of these situations play out because the community lacks the political will or the leader that will step up to say, like, let's work together to fix this.
Right. And that hasn't always been easy here in Bell Fountain, and we know that's what other people are dealing with. So that's why we want to create those resources. But super excited about the Opera Block overall. I know here at the end we'll highlight a few of the the projects that are up and coming for Small Nation, and a lot of them have to do with the Opera Block. But in my role, I'm especially excited for the studio space over at Opera Suites by Build. There on the second floor, we'll have a more permanent setup there. It's being sound treated right now with slat wall, with sound treatment inside that, and then paper backdrops, for photo and video use as well. So I'm sure you'll see that on the Small Nation channels being utilized. But
do those make us look skinny too?
Yeah, for sure. Jason always tells people I make people look skinny on camera.
Except I feel like this angle is not good for me, by the way.
It always stresses me out because I'm like, I'm not making any promises here. But yeah, that'll just be great, and we'll use that here for our show. But then our goal is to also make that available for Build members and non-Build members and just local creatives to come and utilize that space, rent it out for if they want to start a podcast or any photo video content.
And we heard a lot on the show about the importance of arts and being able to reinvent and revitalize a community. And I do think that's something with some of these studio spaces and art spaces we want to create more of in the downtown. So I'm excited about this new studio space and what businesses it may propel and grow. And Ethan, just like with the work that you're doing, like producing this, you have your own business. I mean,
Yeah.
Ethan is hustling day and night, has built a really great business around doing wedding photography.
Videography. I'll make that difference.
You're capable of
Yeah.
all the above, but wedding videography,
Yeah.
and then helping other businesses launch their own podcasts. So just having this studio space will be another tool in your toolbox too.
Yeah, appreciate that. It'll be it's been fun to see other people, a guest that's been on this show, seeing them get up and running with their podcast setup, and obviously just a great learning experience for me, to be able to help other people. But yeah, we're excited for season 2. So expect us in that new space. We may be on the road for a few episodes. We may, I may sit out a few episodes. Jason may sit out a few episods.
Yeah, we're going to have some
get
surprise.
more team members.
Yeah, we actually, of course, if you want to get people excited, you push them out of their comfort zone. So we're excited to introduce some new guest host.
Yeah, so we would just encourage you, to keep following along. We are going to take, a little bit of a break here so we can rebuild our library of episodes, and just get all the scheduling, all the logistics, right? But as we are going into season 2, we strongly encourage you to follow along on social media, interact with those things. We may have an opportunity for Q&As.
We appreciate reviews too, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you for those of you that have reviewed the podcast.
Yeah. And if you haven't done so, that means a lot to us. We're a small town here trying to make a big difference. So any review just helps that word get out to more people. And we believe we're trying to lead with value here. So that's going to be exciting stuff. But what else do we have coming up?
Yeah. It's kind of slow here in our office. There's not much going on.
Yeah.
No.
Said no one ever.
Yeah. Well, I think you highlighted the Opera Suites by Build. We have about 8 dedicated offices. 2 out of those 8 have been committed. One of them will be our podcast studio, but these are dedicated offices that have a beautiful kitchenette that's over there, common space, access to all of the same amenities that you get at Build Co-working Space and also Build Marysville. But it is located on the second floor of the historic Opera Block, and the views and the windows are gorgeous over there.
Right over at the courthouse.
I mean,
right
it is. I'm kind of jealous because I'd like my office to be over there, but it really is that we're excited to wrap that up in the next 30 days. And then Build Marysville is also under construction, 129 North Main Street in Marysville. And the lobby in that space is so big and expansive, in there's brand new storefront windows. They're going to be installed here very soon. But it's right across from another great coffee shop with Coffee Hall there. And then Union County, I mean, there's just so much energy and buzz.
Right.
It's one of the fastest growing counties in the state. So just really excited to bring that location online. The other thing, as we have been surveying what is missing in a vibrant downtown, we are clear that we have plenty of really great hair salons, and the ladies give us a lot of great feedback of all the different cosmetology services that a number of our salons that provide pedicures and manicures and facials and all the good stuff for the ladies. Guys are underserved.
Yes.
We deserve a great place to be pampered, and that gap has come up a number of times. And so we here at the Small Nation team have identified some property that we think that a really high class old school barbershop would fit. And we've seen that be a very successful model in a number of towns similar to Bellefontaine. It's just we want to do it right. And so we have a space that was an existing barbershop that the property was kind of not being maintained, that we're excited to now take control of and also make some important needed upgrades to. And we are going to be promoting that on the commercial for lease page on the Small Nation website. The other thing is we've seen success that not only having one hair salon does for the downtown, but having multiple ones and becoming a destination for hair salons. If that smaller concept works out well, I definitely think we have other properties in the Opera Block that would lend itself for a much larger, barbershop kind of setup too. So just excited if you are someone listening that you know of a barber that's looking to expand or looking to relocate, please have that person reach out to us because we'd love to connect with them.
Yep, for sure. And then a meeting space over there at all? You want to talk about that?
We know that the community is also underserved for places for events. Yeah. And we set out a few years ago of looking at our former Elks Club to redevelop it for a new wedding and events venue. And that project, a lot of people said, are you abandoning that? And the answer is no. But you can imagine with the economic conditions, the way interest rates are, the lack of labor, just our ability to get construction trades, we put that in a holding pattern. And that has allowed us to say, can we do something smaller in another location to test the market, to give us confidence to spend and invest in the capital to do something larger. So we are still really excited to look within the downtown and work on more event space options. So that's going to be a big theme as well. And I'd say the last front, the budding retail scene, we have great shopping. I mean, once you get great food and you get great shopping, we still have one remaining storefront in Rainbow Row. And there have been a lot of people kick the tires on it. A new, beautiful tattoo studio just opened up in Rainbow Row this last week called the Salty Swan. And she is from North Carolina, just this really talented artist. Nikki is doing great things over there. But we really would love to find some kind of very eclectic, fun, creative retail business that finishes out that block because it's pretty cool and we just want to make it cooler.
Sure. 100%. So that's some of the exciting things. Thank you for sharing all this, Jason. But that's what's happening here globally at Small Nation. Some of the things, changes, we've talked about some of them already, but that's going to be happening here on the podcast, new show segments, different types of episodes, but also we're going to be inviting, sponsorship onto the show. So we have, I'm going to link a couple resources down in the show notes. As far as, if you're interested in coming on the show or if you would like to, have some ads on the show, we're creating a couple different lanes for that. Don't worry, we're not going to saturate the whole show with ads.
But we really want to find sponsors and advertisers that are adding value.
Right.
And that is something that we're going to be pretty focused on. But you also, the amount of listeners, I think, did we find that we're over 10,000?
Yeah, 10,000 listens across YouTube.
Thank you guys. Yeah. That's huge. And so I think we've seen exponential growth when we first started this in terms of subscribers, in terms of listeners, and we want to grow it even more. But really finding that title sponsor that we can give a shout out, we can mention, that would help us fund this educational tool for our small business audience. The other thing that you mentioned is not only having that title sponsor, but having episode sponsors.
Yeah.
So each segment being able to give a shout out to who that person is that's helping us provide the content for that day. And then maybe rotating an ad spot in there too. Like, cause a big part of our business is advertising and marketing. So if we can highlight something cool that you're doing in your business that a listener would benefit to have your service or your product, we will have some of those as well. And the last one is our studio rental.
Yeah, 100%. So that, like I said, will be available not only to Build members, but also non-Build members. Any creative, I have a couple ideas of how we're going to be posting it so that is accessible, and we'll make sure that is up and running. Like I said, with some nice paper backdrops for, seamless photo and video work, and then podcast space. A lot of our guests, even on the show, have expressed interest in starting their own podcast, but obviously, equipment can be intimidating and a barrier of entry. So we want to kind of eliminate that as much as we can. So if you are interested in any of those things, those will be coming soon.
Does Small Nation water come with that? I actually get questions about that.
Yeah.
Maybe you see sitting on the shelf that very fine.
That's what keeps the Small Nation podcast going, is the Small Nation water. So
It's the good stuff.
Well, I think that's been, a good recap of season 1. Thank you so much for the listeners. Thank you, Jason, for, allowing us to do this and making this all possible and sharing your wisdom with everybody. And we hope that it's been valuable, for our listeners. And
it's been valuable for me.
Right.
And that's kind of the big surprise. It's like the real raw stories that people will open up. And probably my favorites is when people get choked up, because it is something that you have struck a chord that maybe they've not been able to discuss with someone else, but they'll feel comfortable doing it here. And I think we want to build and grow upon that. So thanks for allowing us to be able to do that and do more of that.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, as a younger guy, just coming in here and having the opportunity to sit in the room and listen to all those conversations has been invaluable for me. But more to come, and we're going to try to continue to improve and just innovate on this show and everything that we're doing. So, but that's it. So I'm going to outro us here for the last time, and hopefully when we intro and outro for season 2, it'll be pre-recorded so I can stop fumbling over my words.
We enjoy your realness, Ethan. Thanks for being authentic.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and checking out the Small Nation podcast. You can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even the Small Nation YouTube channel. I hope you were able to pull some value from that conversation, and we hope to see you in the next one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, comment, or a 5-star review to help more people to discover this podcast. Stay tuned to Small Nation on social media to keep up with all the cool projects that are happening here. Until next time, this is Ethan with the Small Nation podcast, signing off.
Yeah.